In this video, we will build a quiz app in LWC. So till now, we have learned couple of fundamentals of LWC. So we're gonna use those fundamentals to build this application. So we're gonna use, first we'll see how we can create a component. Then we'll use if true directive, we'll use for each loop, we'll use getter, we'll use different methods, we'll use properties, we'll use form submit and reset, and we'll see HTML layouts. We're gonna use these concepts to build this application. So let's go to our VS Code and let's create a component. I'll go to command palette, and you can go from here as well, from view command palette. So I'll go to command palette and create a lightning web component. I'll give this name quiz app in LWC, or quiz app only is fine, and take the default folder. So now our quiz app component has been created. So let's go to the JS file first, to HTML, and create a lightning card. We'll say lightning card, and we'll get the title quiz app in LWC, and we close this card. Apart from that, we'll create a div with a class slds margin around medium. So we are giving margin around the card so that whatever we'll write inside this div should not touch the borders of the card. So here quiz will come, and you have to deploy this component, and for that we'll go to the meta file, and we'll change this meta file to true, and we'll set the target as lightning app page. To expose your component to the lightning page, we have to set is exposed to true, and which page you want your component to be visible. For that you have to set the target. So I'm saying my quiz app should place only in the lightning app page. So when we drag our component in the app builder, there you can only able to see the component and able to drag the component to the lightning app page only. So let's deploy this component. Let's run the command sftx force source push, and now it will deploy our component. And in meantime, we can go to our org, we can go to the gear icon, we'll go to the setup, and we are going to create our app page. And now in the quick find, I'll say lightning, and we'll go to lightning app builder, click on new lightning page we're gonna create. The page type is app page. Select app page, hit next. You can give the label quiz app, hit next. You can give the one region's layout, so the whole page will be in the one section. So let's select that region and hit finish. And here we can search for our component if it's deployed. So if I say quiz, and you can see our component is there under the custom. You can drag this component and hit save, activate this, and go to the lightning experience and select our app 0 to hero in LWC. They add page to the app, so we are placing our quiz app to our 0 to hero app. We'll hit save, and now it's saved. Let's go back, and we can go back to our app, refresh the page once quickly, and now you can see that our quiz app page is ready. So our component is placed perfectly, and it's saying quiz app in LWC, and here quiz will come. So now we created the component, we place our component in our app page. So let's go and create the questions now. So I'm back in my VS Code. So now we're going to create the questions for our app. I'll create a property, my questions, and questions will be many. So the data type will be array of objects. Each object is a single question. So I'll say each question will have an ID. So we'll say question 1. Then we'll have a question, and we can ask question which one of the following is not a template loop. This is my question, and there will be answers. And the answers you can say will be in the form of A, B, and C. So for A option, the option is for each. For B option, iterator, and C for C option, map loop. And we already studied there are two types of template loop for each and iterator, so it means C is the wrong answer. So for us, the correct answer for the question is C. So this is the structure. So we have an ID for the question, we have the full question, then we have answers, and then we have the correct answer, that is C. Similarly, I'll copy the same structure 2 more times, and let's update the second question. We'll say question 2, and we'll say which of the file is invalid in WC component folder, and we can say .svg, .apex, and .js. And yes, you are correct, Apex is an invalid file, so answer is B here, and change S to small. Now let's set the third question. The third question is which of the following is not a directive? And we already know about directive, so we have seen the directive for each, we have seen if true, and let's add some wrong one, that is at the track. The right answer is C here as well. So now our question list is ready. So let's render this question list in our HTML. I'll remove this. I'll say template for each. We have to run the loop on my questions, and for item, so each item I'll call it as quiz, and inside this I'll create a div as a wrapper, and to the wrapper will give a key. We already know key is very important for the for each loop, so we'll give the key now. We'll say the key is quiz.id, because in our JS ID is always unique, question 1 and question 2 and question 3. So now the key is there. Let's print the questions. So we'll create a div, we'll create a strong tag. Strong tag is to give the font little bit bolder. So let's say quiz.id, then we'll say quiz.question. So it will print our ID and the question on the screen. So question is in small, correct. So let's deploy and see whether our questions are rendering on the screen or not. So let's push the code. So now it's deployed. Let's go to our app, refresh the page. And now you can see that our questions are rendering perfectly. You can put the question marks in at the end of all the questions. So let's go back to our VS Code quickly. Go to JS file and we'll put question mark. And now if you see here, our questions are ready. Now we need the options to come here, and we want the user can select only one answer at a time for each question. And for that we're gonna use a radio button, and I want my answer to be aligned perfectly. For that we're gonna use a Salesforce given library, that is Lightning Design System. We'll talk more about this library in our CSS section, but for this demo purpose I'm going to use some style from their library. So in the Google you can type lightningdesignsystem.com, but make sure you will not pick up the react.lightning design system. This is specific to React. We are looking for the Salesforce point of view. So you just copy this, or you just type this URL in your browser and hit enter. It will take you directly to the Lightning Design System library, and here you can search for the grid. Select the grid, and here in the grid section it will show you all different types of grid that you can form, and their code as well. So you can pick up the first one itself and you say show code, and copy this and come back to our VS Code, and you can paste it here. Go to HTML and we'll paste it just below this, say below the div tag. So we'll paste it here. We have now our options. So we'll remove this span. So I'll try to explain this. So it's saying whatever is inside this div is a grid. So we are creating the grid. It will not take any extra padding and spacing. So each column will call it as SLDS call. And now here we'll print our answers. So we'll say quiz dot answer dot a. Then in the next column we'll say quiz dot answer dot b, and we'll say quiz dot answer dot c. So these are the answer, and these are already in the loop. So for each question the option will render, and let's deploy and see how it looks. So now it's deploying now, and now it's deployed. Let's go back to our app and refresh the page and see whether the options are coming on the screen or not. And it's saying cannot read property A of undefined. Let's go and make sure we are giving the correct value. Quiz dot answer, we can here, and its answers, and change the answer to answers. Let's redeploy. Now it's deployed. Let's go and refresh the page again, and now you can see that it's giving us the equal spacing between the columns. So this is first column, second column, and third column. Values are coming perfectly fine. And now what we want is we want a radio button in front of them. So let's go and add the radio button. And for radio button I'm going to use a plain HTML radio button, because I don't want to make this application very complicated, because we have just learned the fundamentals. So I'll say input type equal to radio. So we are creating an input field of type radio. We'll say it has a name property. Name property is quiz.id. Then we'll say the value for this radio button is A, and on change we will call a method change handler, and we'll close our input field. It's a self-closing tag, and in front of option B also we'll do the same, and in front of option C also we're gonna do the same. The only change we're gonna do is the change in the value. So for B option will say the value is B, and for C option will say the value is C. And now we have created a handler here. What we're gonna do, we'll create this handler in our JS file. We'll create this method and minimize my questions. And here I'll say change handler, and it will receive an event. Now what we're gonna do, the console say event dot target dot name and event dot target dot value. We'll say value is, so it will print in the console whenever you hit on a radio button, it will show you what's the name of the radio button and what's the value of the radio button that you have selected. Now this method is there. Now our radio button is there. Now let's deploy this. So now it's deployed. Let's go and refresh the page. And now radio button is coming perfectly fine. We haven't learned CSS, so I'm not going to write any CSS externally to make it beautify. Here we are just focusing on the main concepts. So now we have our questions, we have the options. I'll do the right click on the page, go to inspect, go to console, clear the console, and if I select an option or I click on a radio button, it immediately tell me the name is question 1, which means you have selected something in the question 1 and the value is A. If I select the same question with a different option, it will immediately says the same question, that question 1 you have selected, the value is B. If I go to another option, it says name is question 2, which is question 2 you have selected, value you have selected is A. Now we are getting whichever question we are choosing and whichever answer we are choosing, we are getting in our console. So now that's a good thing. Now we have the option that we want to store, and before that we can give some space between the questions so that it can be a little bit more clear. And for that what we can do is, here we already have class. Let's copy this class SLDS margin around medium and we'll paste it with the column, and we'll say SLDS margin bottom medium, and similarly we'll do for this. We don't need to give it to each column, we can give it directly to the grid and paste it here. So it will give some space between each question. And for that what we can do is we can add the same class at the parent div as well. And let's deploy and see whether our spacing looks better or not. So now it's deployed. Let's go and refresh the page. And now you can see that the space is coming between these two. So that is working fine. And what we can do is, for the little bit more space, we can go and change the class that we have added to the grid. Instead of margin, we can add padding, because here also we are setting the margin and here also we are setting the margin, so it will take the same margin. So to the parent we are giving the margin bottom medium, and to the grid we are saying take the padding bottom medium. So that's okay. Now let's go back to our JS file and create a property that will store our answers. So on the top I'll create a property called selected, and it will be an object because we have to store couple of answers. Like we have 3 questions, so we have to store 3 answers. And I'll just put the comment for storing answers. And here whenever the user selects something in the option, this method gets called up. You already seen it will give us the name and the value. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the object restructuring here. So we'll fetch the name and the value from event.target. And if you don't know how it works, I can tell you once again. So this is the shorthand notation. This is equal to const name equal to event dot target dot name, and again you have to type the same thing, and const value equal to event dot target dot value. Instead of writing this, you can write the shorthand like this. We are saying go to event dot target and fetch the property and store in the same name. So here if you see the property name and the variable name is same. If you want the same names, you can go with the object instruction. So now we have a name, we have a value. Now we want these value to store in the selected object. For that, what we're gonna do, we'll say this dot selected equal to, and we'll say take whatever is inside the selected property. So we are doing the spreading. It's a spread operator. In the JavaScript section, we talk a lot about spread operator. And then we'll say take the name property as a key and then store the value along the name property. So let me explain how it's gonna work behind the scene. So suppose you select the first option. Okay. So for the first question, you select the first option. So the name will be here is question 1. So it will become question 1 and the value will be like A. Okay. And now it will store here. Then this dot selected will look like this dot selected will be like this. Question 1 and option A. Now suppose you change your mind and you select the option B. So what will happen is this is already available in this dot selected, and if you are adding a new value to the same key that is already available, it will overwrite and immediately option answer A become B here like this. So that's the shorthand way. And name and value. Now we stored our option, and now let's create the form so that the user can able to submit as well the quiz application. So outside the template for each, I'm going to create a form tag, and I'll wrap our template with the form tag. So now our form is there, and within the form tag at the bottom, what we're going to do, we're going to create two buttons. So we'll say lightning button. These are the standard lightning web components. So I'm saying lightning button variant brand. I want the color to be of blue color, and I'm saying the type of this button is submit, and the type is very important here because we are using the button inside the form, and to tell the form what kind of action this button is doing, we have to define the type submit. And then I'll say label equal to submit, and I'll close this. Apart from that, I want couple of more things to this button. I want to add some class. I'll say SLDS margin around medium, or we can give small. I don't want my two buttons, one is submit and other reset, gonna touch each other. That's why I'm giving this class margin around the button. And let's format this button a little more clear. Yeah, so I structure this, and I'll copy the same button again and paste it below, and I'll say the variant is same brand, type this time should be reset, label will be reset, and it's always good to add the title for accessibility point of view so that our component works in the screen reader as well. So I'll say submit quiz, and here as well I'll give the title reset quiz. So now we have two buttons, one is submit, one is brand, and on click of the submit I want some action, so I'll add a handler here. I'll say submit handler, and on click of reset button also I want some action. I'll say reset handler, and let's go and create this method. So below the change handler we're going to add the submit handler, and similarly I'm going to add the reset handler as well. So now our methods are ready, and now what we want is on submit we should able to receive all the answer that he has selected, and we need to check whether the answer that the user has selected are correct, and if all correct or how many are correct basically out of total. So let's, before writing that code, let's deploy this and see whether the buttons are coming on the screen or not. So now it's deployed. Let's go and refresh the page. So now the buttons are coming, and what I want is the user should not able to click the submit button directly without filling the all answers. So what we can do is we can disable the submit button until unless each question is answered. So let's go and do that. And for that what we can do is we'll go to the submit button and we'll create a property disabled, and we'll add a property here, all not selected, and in the JS I'm going to create a getter that will confirm whether all are selected or not. So for the getter I'll create a getter here, get all not selected, and to confirm that we can use a trick here, and the trick is what we can do is we know the total questions. So what we can do, we can say return object dot keys this dot selected dot length equal to this dot my questions dot length, and if it's not equal it means it's not selected. So let me explain you what we are trying to do here. So object dot keys, so let me go back to our browser and open the inspect. So let's say we have our this dot selected equal to question 1 and A, and we can have another question 2, and there also you choose the answer A. Now variable selected has two properties right now. So if I do object dot keys of selected, it gives me an array of all the keys, and if I do object dot keys of that object and dot length, so it gives me the length of the keys, basically how many keys are there. So I know within this property or this variable I have two keys available, which means only two options has been selected, and in my total array if I use dot length it will gives me by default it's 3 because it's a standard, we are not changing the question length again and again. So here what it will happen, it says 2 equal to 3, it's false, and not of false it will return true, which means make it disable. So it immediately disable it. Suppose we have answered all the questions, so the length will be here, it's 3 equal to 3, it means yes, all answers has been selected, and then it's true, and not of true is false, and here it will not disable the button. So this is a shorthand trick for disabling the button. and let's deploy this and test this. So now it's deployed. Let's go and refresh the page. Now you can see that the submit button is disabled. Let's select the options, and as soon as I selected all three, now immediately our submit button become enabled. So that's how we disable or enable the button. Now what I want is on click of the submit to calculate the correct number of answer. Let's go and do that. So let's create a property on the top called correct answers. The correct answers equal to 0. Okay, so the result we're gonna use this number, and whenever we click on submit button, it will receive an event. And because this submit button is inside the form always refresh the page. So to prevent that, we will use event dot prevent default. We don't the default feature of form, so that it should not refresh our page. And then what we're gonna do is we'll run a filter on our all questions. We'll say this dot my questions dot filter. So we are running the filter on all the questions, and pick up each question as an item, and we'll say this dot selected, and this dot selected is the object where we are storing the answers the user has selected. And here we'll say item dot id, and if you remember, in my question the id is the question 1, question 2, and in the selected also we are storing the keys with the same name as id. So what we're gonna do is from the selected pick up the first key, then second key, then the third key, like that, and check whether the user has selected the answer that is equal to the correct answer. So let me explain you it a bit more. So suppose this dot selected is right now of this one, question 1, and the user has selected the option A. Okay, now after this let's add 2 more questions. So for question 2 the user has selected the B, and for question 3 user has selected the option C. Now when the filter runs, right, so it will go for each item. When it comes here, it will see what's the item.id. Item.id is question, and once you go to an object and pick up the question 1, it will pick up A. So here it will check basically A equal to the correct answer, and here the correct answer is C. So it will pick up this and come here and check whether A is equal to C or not. If it's not, it will not return it. Otherwise, it will return that particular object. So filtering, you already know how it works. If it matches the expression, if it returns true, it returns that particular object, which means the item. Otherwise, it will not return. So that's what we are doing here. Let me go back. So we are filtering the correct answer, and once the correct answer comes, we'll store it into a property correct. And now what we're going to do is, once we have the correct answer, we can, because filter always return an array, we can say correct dot length, and we can store this length into a property correct answer. So we'll say this dot correct answer equal to correct dot length. So this correct answer will tell us how many correct answer we have selected, and on click of reset enter, what we want is we'll reset the answer whatever we have choose. We'll say this dot selected reset back to empty object, and we'll say this dot correct answers equal to 0, and it will reset it. So let's deploy and see. We'll just console the correct answer. Say when we hit the submit button, just print the correct answers. So let's deploy component, and now it's deployed. Let's go and refresh the page. And I can open my debugger. I'll go to console. And now I start answering the question, which of one of the following is not a template loop. I'll say map loop, and for the second, intentionally I'll choose some wrong answer, and for the third one also I'll choose some option. Clear the console and hit submit, and it immediately tells me the correct answer length is 1. So you have only one answer correct, and if we see only the first question we have answer correct, rest both are incorrect. So the length is coming correctly. Now on submit, what we want is we want to show a message to a user how many he has corrected. So let's go and do that. And now in the HTML, what I'm going to do is we'll create a div. We can select, do it on the top above the form. We'll say div you have scored correct answers, like it will show you have scored 1 out of total. We'll say out of my questions dot length, and we want to show this message only when the user hits submit. And for that, what we can do is in the JS we can create a property is submitted. On the top we can create a property is submitted to false. We'll say used to show the result for the correct answer, number of correct answer, to show the number of correct answer. And now we're gonna use this property, and we'll say whenever the user hits submit, change this property to true, and say this dot submitted equal to true. And in the HTML on the top we'll use the if true directive. We'll say template if true submitted, and we'll put the div like this, and it will only show when it's submitted. So now it's done. Let's deploy and see how it looks. So now it's deployed. Let's go and refresh the page. And let's select this, and hit submit. And immediately you can see it says you have scored 0 out of 3. And I want it to be little bit bolder, as well as to show the green color if you scored 3 out of 3. Otherwise it should come in the red color. So let's go and do that. So what I can do is I need to give a class that is dynamic, and we already know when we have to give something dynamic in the HTML we always use the getter and setter. Basically the getter will be used here. So what we can do is we'll say a class say is scored full, and in the JS I'm going to create that getter. Then get is scored full, and how we gonna check this? We'll say First, always return a class that is HLDS text hyphen heading underscore large. So this will give the bigger font to our message that this class should always be there. After that, we're gonna use the JavaScript inside the string. So we are using here basically a string interpolation, and here we're gonna test. We're gonna write our ternary operator. Will say if this dot my questions dot length is equal to this dot correct answers. So which means if you have my question length is 3 and your answers all are correct, then what we're gonna do, I'm using a ternary operator, so it will say use if the first condition is true, like the expression is true, take the first thing, otherwise take the second part. So I'm saying use the class success if the all answers are correct, otherwise use the error class. And these classes are also coming from the Lightning Design System. So if I go back and search here as text, you select the text, you can see all the classes are available here. So you can see heading large, so we are using this class SLDS text heading large, that will give this size of font. And for the color of green I am using a success class, and for the error or for the red color I am using a error class. So let's go and deploy this. And most of the time while we watching the video we miss this is a backtick. This is not a single quote, this is the backtick that is above the tab button. Now it's deployed. Let's go back and refresh the page. Say like this and we'll say submit. Says immediately you have scored 0 out of 3. So now it's in red color. Let's select the correct ones and let's hit the reset. So it should reset our form. It reset the form, but it's not hiding the message. That will fix in a minute. Let's select the correct answer. So I'll say map loop apex and track and hit submit, and it immediately shows you have scored 3 out of 3. This application can be very beautiful, but right now we haven't learned anything related to CSS. That's why we are just using the concept whatever we have learned till now. Okay, so let's go, and on click of reset we'll hide this message again. And to hide that message, it's very easy. We just need to call this dot is submitted equal to false. And let's add some comments as well. That's a good practice when we build an app. So we'll say reset form reset handler. The top we can say on submit handler, and we can remove the consoles and change handler. Change handler called on every click options, and we can move these consoles we don't need, and you can say for applying dynamic styling to our result, we are using this getter. You can say used for disabling submit button. This getter we are using to disabling the submit button, and these properties already has methods. And one more thing we can do is we can put this result to the bottom of the form. and there it will look more clearer. So let's deploy and see. So now it's deployed, and refresh the page, and let's close the console, and let's select first all wrong ones. Hit submit. You have scored 0 out of 3. The message is coming. Let's hit the reset button. The message should go away and the forms get resetted. And zoom it a little bit. Now select the correct answers, and let's hit submit, and it says you have scored 3 out of 3. So now our quiz application is looking good and working well. And now once we complete the CSS section in future, I would suggest you to apply the styling to the same app and make it more beautiful. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next video. In this video, we'll learn about component composition. So the composition